Can I ask you a question?
The Bolton Ink Effect.
Welcome back to another episode of the Bolton Ink Effect podcast. And today I am very excited to have one of our local heroes here in Tauranga with me, none other than Michael Carter. Michael, welcome to the show.
Kia ora, Louis.
Thank you very much for joining me. I think we're recording this on a Sunday, which is pretty awesome. So there's no rest for the wicked for you and me.
No.
Hey. Okay, so who is Michael Carter? Well, folks, Michael Carter is a very interesting human being in that he is an architect by trade. That's what he does for a living. But there's a lot more to him than meets the eye, and we'll get into that in a second. But Michael, again, thank you very much for your time. I've got one question for you to open this discussion. It's like you mentioned earlier when we were making a cup of coffee that you love festivals. I'm so curious about that. Tell me more about what you love about festivals and which one particularly.
Yeah, so my favourite festival was went to Tomorrowland in 2023.
That's incredible.
And it was probably the most incredible experience of my life. And it's just the atmosphere and you're with your friends. And I think one of the main reasons I like about it is when you're at a festival, you're kind of like in your own little world. And you're sort of away from the outside world, you're not sure what's going on, and it's just all about positivity, loving life, and that is why I love festivals. And
so where was Tomorrowland? Where was it held?
I was in Belgium.
In Belgium?
Yes.
Okay, and,
yes.
and just for context, for folks out there that might not have heard about Tomorrowland, what is Tomorrowland and what sort of size is it?
Yeah, so it's the biggest festival in the world, and it's essentially like Disneyland on steroids. And it's just got amazing artists. And I remember the first because they always do a lot of, put a huge amount of emphasis on the stages.
Right.
And I just remember the first moment of walking, because you walk down over the hill and you just see the stage for the first time. And it was just absolutely amazing. This ginormous stage and the atmosphere. And it was just incredible.
Yeah. I can relate to that story in terms of attending Africa Burn, which essentially is a festival in the middle of a desert, where these massive sculptures, art sculptures get made in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
And I was part of a film crew that filmed one of them, and we spent a month in the desert.
Oh, wow.
And to what you were saying, you enter into another world, another paradigm where people are full of positivity. There's no money exchange.
No.
Everything is transactional in terms of bartering.
Oh, wow.
So you will go in the morning, you'll have your coffee, and then in the afternoon, they'll come to you for a session of whatever that is. So there's no money exchange.
Yeah. Wow.
And it is a kind of alternate reality. Which can be utopian. And unfortunately, we have to return to reality sometimes. But I think what happened for me when I went to Africa Burn and we built this massive temple in the middle of the desert is that when you leave there, you take some of that essence and some of that learning into the real world. Now, coming back to you, you're a local here in Tauranga. Michael, just briefly tell us what you do in terms of the work you do, and then I'm going to explain to the audience and I'm going to unpack about what we're actually here to talk about. So briefly, Michael, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so by trade, I'm an architectural designer. And I also, that's my main job, but I also restore a small forest in my spare time. It's a bit of a passion project of mine. And also the Opportunity Tauranga candidate.
So that third one, you kind of let slip in there. You're, with the shirt that you're wearing. For the folks out there that you're not watching the video, Michael is wearing an Opportunity t-shirt because he is the party candidate for the 2026 parliamentary election, which we will unpack in a short while. Tell me more about your passion project. And the reason I'm going to ask is because it leads me into the question from your architectural design and what you can bring into the party candidacy. What do you mean a passion project and restoration project? What is that about?
Yeah, so it's funny. I've always had this idea that I've wanted to restore a piece of forest in New Zealand. And I always just, when I was younger, I was thinking, if I ever won the lotto, I'd buy just this big piece of native forest and restore it. And luckily, I didn't win the lotto. But,
Okay.
but my wife,
Trying, yeah.
but my wife's parents own a property and they've got some native bush on it, and that backs on some other native bush. And I am restoring that, and so I am trying to turn this piece of forest, which no one really knows about because you can't even see it from the road, and trapping and removing pest plants, and I'd like to get it predator free in 10 years.
Okay, so that's the kind of length of time that you kind of
That's kind of what I've, that's kind of what I've wanted to do. It.
So, and you're doing this by yourself, or is it with a group? Or
No, I'm just doing it by myself. Just trapping in there, building. It's completely inaccessible, and so I've had to build a path all the way down to the valley.
Wow, okay.
And it's beautiful forest. Like, it hasn't been logged, so it's incredible.
So why not? So you're restoring this piece of land. You're an architect by trade. You're into party politics, which we'll get into in a second. Why not just donate to an organization rather than actually physically do it yourself?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so rewarding. And I do donate as well to some elements, but I think this is a piece of forest that if I didn't do anything, nothing would ever get done on it.
All right. And are you doing this by yourself? Have you got the support of your wife?
Oh, yeah, she loves it. Yeah, she doesn't
help
like
you?
She doesn't, or my dog comes down and helps me, but no, she comes down for a walk with me, and then, yeah, and also my wife's parents are extremely grateful, and they love the idea of it as well.
So, Michael, I'm surely that is. So, how often do you do this?
We go for dinner there every Sunday, and so I just spend a few hours down the track every Sunday, and we would live there for a little bit.
Okay, so this is going to sound slightly weird, but what does that give you in terms of your day-to-day working in an office environment with other people designing, for commercial properties and commercial buildings and stuff like that, to actually get your hands dirty on the land? What does that do for you? Does it give you this? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but does it give you space? Does it give you time to think, to decompress? What does it do for you, knowing that you are actually working with a fellow with the land itself?
Yeah, so I think one of the key things is that connecting with nature is just so important for our health, and especially in sort of relating back to architecture as well. Biophilic design there is a huge amount of it massively benefits you, and especially in sort of health-wise, that if you're connecting with nature, your health benefits.
Okay, so speak specifically with you. How have you found that it's affected you, making you better at work or worse at work? What has it done for you?
Yeah, so it basically is kind of like when I'm in the bush, I can sort of detox a little bit away, and it just gives me time to think, and I can refresh. And then so I do that on a Sunday, and every Monday I come back and I'm in the office and I feel so much more positive, and it's fantastic.
I would assume that the pace at which you do things, you can only do as much as you can on the land.
Yep.
So things take time.
Yep.
So you kind of realize the trajectory of like how long this is actually going to take you in terms of, I mean, how big is a piece of land?
It's about 35 hectare piece of forest.
So it's a fair size for you to be able to remove the pest, to get rid of all the nasties and stuff like that. So it does give you perspective.
Yep.
Yep.
It does. And I think as well, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. And so I'm all about restoring our environment. And so I'm not just saying, oh, we have to do something. I'm actively doing it.
I love that. I really love that. So your hands are getting dirty, but you can actually speak of it because you're doing it. Okay. Yep. Just moving on just a little bit sideways now with the Opportunity Party. Can you tell the folks out there that don't know about it, who is Opportunity Party and what is it about?
Yeah, so Opportunity Party I've been a supporter of them for a wee while. And it's a party that is just about getting the job done.
Getting the job done. Okay.
And there is so much, I mean, I kind of like use the analogy where I'm sick of politics. And so that's why I got involved, because I'm sick of what's happening. And I've not been in any way aspired to be a politician or anything like that. But
because that was my next question. Is like, okay, while you're carrying on that, it's like, I mean, you don't strike me as the kind of person who wants to be a politician. So sick of what's going on. So please, what does that mean for you? Like, how does that get you to be a party candidate?
Yeah, well, so I think, so my values really align with the opportunities values. And I know that I'm doing this because when I always want to leave the world in a better place when I go. That's probably one of the main reasons and that I'm doing this, is because the future of this country is, I'm not that happy with where it's going. And I think that if I don't do this and I can get and the values of opportunity into government is going to make the future of this country so much better for everyone.
Okay, I don't know much about politics because I'm not particularly interested in it for various reasons, because I have a bit of apathy towards it because I have to back myself. But to your point about leaving this world a better place than when you were brought into it, what is your current read on the government, in your own words, of where it is and how it's let you down?
Yeah, I just think it's just sort of the lack of the future focus. And for younger people, exactly like me, and there's this real alarming stat that for every one person that's on the superannuation, there's going to be now 3 taxpayers for that person, and then in the future there's going to be 2. And so where does that leave, like, the future of this country? We're having to pay so much, the cost of living, and so how can we actually have a country that can support young people?
Okay, so your day job is literally designing buildings for commercial clients, okay? So often kinds of buildings that sit on high value land. Do you ever feel that there's a tension between that work and then advocating for like a land value tax that would fundamentally restructure how the land is priced? And the reason I'm asking that question is because one of the policies or one of the guiding principles for the Opportunity Party is to bring in some sort of universal basic income to help with the cost of living.
Yep.
Can we explore that, and can you explain what that actually means?
So the citizen income basically is a regular payment to everyone. And everyone gets it.
In New Zealand?
Everyone gets it.
No matter whether across the board?
No, and so it replaces a lot of what we have now of super, and replaces the benefit, and so everyone gets it. And it removes a whole level of administration out of it. And so what it does is, overall, it will lift people massively out of what we have now, poverty. And and there's more and more studies coming out about it. And that what it does is it actually gives people a sense of security, and so that people are more likely to go in and take, start their own businesses up.
Okay, so so just for my sake, so land value tax, so is that where the money will come from?
Yes.
So just for my sake, what does that actually mean? Is that that's a tax on the land that gets pulled that will allow for this?
Yeah.
What do we call it? Do we call it UBI? Citizens income.
Yeah, so the citizens income and LVT have to work together. And so the LVT is a flat rate on land. So there's a different rate for rural, and there's a different rate for urban. And so, for example, if you are if you're a family with a house, you're about the kind of the same with the citizens income and land value tax. If you don't own a house, you're better off. And if you own multiple houses, that you're going to be paying more tax. And so the whole idea of it is that currently we're just investing in the housing market, and it's actually not benefiting the country. And so it's moving away from having that as looking at actually building businesses, innovation, and actually growing the country rather than just relying on houses.
What does a typical Saturday morning or dinner with your in-laws look like out there? And then what made you decide to do it on your own land rather than, like I asked earlier, just to donate to an organization?
Yeah, so every Sunday so we've just done a bit of a reno at our house, and so freed up a bit more time now, which is good. And so on a Sunday morning, we'll get up, we'll take the dog for a walk, we'll go do something nice together, me and my wife, and then we'll head up to the farm, and I'll go down my track for about 2 hours. And
by yourself?
Yeah, just by myself with the dog. And I absolutely love it. I tell people that it's kind of like, it's like fishing. So you set the trap and and then it's that same analogy. Oh, you've caught something, and you can kind of see that you're actually making a difference.
Because how long have you been doing it now?
Oh, 1 year, 8 months.
Okay. Have you noticed any changes? Any slight?
Slowly changed. I mean, I've caught over 600 pests in this time. It's been a real eye-opener about the state of our forests that have not had any pest control in it, because and there's just massive amount of DOC is massively underfunded. And there is such amazing work going on that people are doing, but we just have to keep doing it. We just have to, as a country, as part of our identity, our environment is our identity.
How much of what's the word I'm looking for? You know, you mentioned, I've asked you two very different questions now about, LVT and the citizens' income and the natural land. How much of this is, I want to use the word client education in terms of actually educating the public out there, first of all, to get them less apathetic and motivate them to actually get something done. How much of that is in your control or can you advocate for?
I think as New Zealanders, Kiwis, we need to fall in love with nature again. And it's also about educating people with the benefits of that. And looking at especially biodiversity. And I saw this absolutely alarming stat the other day that if we don't do anything, it's going to cost the future generations $270 billion. Now, all of this, it's not going to be the people who are in power at the moment. No. It's going to be my generation and my kids' generation that are going to do this. And it's going to cost more and more and more and more. And so if we don't do anything, the burden's just going to be passed on to future generations. And
it just feels like we have got such a massive task ahead of us, because it's a paradigm shift. It's a massive rethinking, not a reinventing of the wheel, but just the wheel needs to go in the other direction, doesn't it?
It's about valuing nature and looking at how we can use that as a way to we can still have development in this country, but use it as a tool to have good development and to really look after what we have.
All right. So Tauranga is one of New Zealand's fastest growing cities, and it's been governed by commissioners rather than elected representatives for years. So as someone who designs buildings and wants to represent in Parliament, what does Tauranga get wrong about its own growth?
Interesting. So infrastructure is a massive issue here, connectivity to the city. And so I'm from Christchurch, and I love the Christchurch example where there was the earthquake and it completely flattened the city. So I was there for all of that.
You were?
Yeah, my last year of school was the year of the earthquake.
Oh my Lord. Okay, so it's still traumatic though.
Yeah, but what it was, and it was a completely broken city and it was completely changed and started from scratch. And so, and now you look at Christchurch and it's just incredible. The stadium opened up last weekend and you've got this revitalised city centre. And so I think that's something that Tauranga can have. It can happen to Tauranga. At the moment, we're having these buildings which are, the library's opening up, and that's going to be a catalyst for all other things and actually sorting out connectivity, bringing people into the city and to have it grow. Like, I think it'll be fantastic.
So we're on the right path or trajectory.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to spend a bit of money to make the investment, and that's exactly what's happening now. Is that you've got these anchor projects essentially,
right?
Which are going to be the library, and they will open up, and that'll spur on more, and then the city will be revitalized.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Moving on, the other question that we're going to ask is the Opportunity Party has never made it into Parliament, despite nearly a decade of trying. So what's your honest read on why, and what do you think makes a difference for 2026? How is that generally different, rather than just being optimistic?
So I think for a start, Kule is doing a fantastic job as a leader.
Kule being?
Kule is the leader.
Kule is the current leader of the Opportunity Party.
Yes. She's doing a fantastic job. And I think there's a real momentum around where people, again, sick of the left and right and just want to get the job done with pragmatic, evidence-based policies. And that's exactly why I'm here. Because I want to see that for this country, and that's why I think a lot of people are now looking at opportunity going, yes, we agree with that as well. We want that.
I love that, because for the first time, what you've just said to me, it feels like you're not interested in politics, but at the same time, you know that you can affect change. And there's been a vehicle now through the Opportunity Party, and it could be named anything, but it's like where you can actually do something. Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
I love that. Okay, cool. So you've worked at multiple large architectural firms. You're an associate principal at the moment at Wingates. You've worked at Jazzmax, you've worked at Architectus, Black Box. Each of those companies or those organizations have a distinct culture.
Yep.
Okay. So what did you learn at a place that you had to consciously leave behind when you had to move on? Does that make sense?
Yes. So Architectus, very good architecture company. They do some amazing work, and the culture there is about creating good architecture. And I learned it was my first 3 years. It was hard.
Okay.
But I learned so much from it. And that's something that I can, like, good work ethic, all about the design process and how you can create good architecture.
Okay.
And that's what I've sort of taken and moved to my new company, where I've sort of learnt all of those kind of good processes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So culture is obviously an important part of the makeup of any organization that you work with. And you obviously love what you do now. So what have you learnt about yourself, Michael, over the last number of years since you've got your degree? What do you reckon has been the biggest lesson that you've learned through your architectural career?
Yeah, I think I've learned a few.
Please share. We've got time. I'd love to know.
Yeah. So I think making sure that when I put my mind to something and I work hard, I can get the results. So the amount of, and architecture always, there's so much learning in there. There's different components.
Absolutely.
And there's you've got concept design and all the way to on-site work.
Yep.
And so to learn each stage and to also take your time. And
so what's your biggest takeaway from your career in your architectural career at the moment?
Yeah, so I'd always wanted to do a building in my home city, Christchurch. And last year I completed one right on Heaton Street, and I just was down in Christchurch on Thursday showing the jury around for an NZA award. So it's been shortlisted for that.
Congratulations.
And so that's one of the key things I'd always wanted to do. It was do a building in my home city. And so I've done that. And so, I'm pretty happy with it. And it's had a lot of positive results from it, positive feedback. And so, yeah, that's quite rewarding.
I love that.
Yeah.
So just give me where people can actually have a look at that and find it on the.
So it's 122 Heaton Street.
122 Heaton Street. Okay.
Yeah, and it was a really had a lot of constraints in the building. So it was it had a beautiful old character home on the site, and that was taken away. And then it's also in a heritage zone, and plus it's on terrible land. It was seismic issues because of but the end result, we had a really good process with the council, and the end result is, and especially with the neighbours as well, making sure that the neighbours are all happy, and it's had a really good positive feedback from it.
So you couldn't have done this 5 years ago. So this kudos and speaks to your the lessons that you've learned in the previous companies, and you've got the result now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So architecture's core job is imagining places that don't exist yet. And you've just mentioned, the one in Christchurch. Do you bring that same disposition to politics? So if so, what does Tauranga look like in the next 10, 20, 30 years if we get it right?
Yep. So I'd love to see a city that's revitalized and that we're not caught up in this idea that we have to jump in a car and go somewhere stuck down Hewlett's Road in traffic. That we can just go anywhere we want. We're not stuck in traffic. There's fantastic public transport into the city that there's awesome bars and restaurants.
Do you think that's possible?
Absolutely, with and you can jump on a train and take the train to Auckland. You could take the train from Papamoa.
What's your timeline on that, do you reckon?
Well, look, I think that it needs to happen soon.
Yeah.
I think it needs to happen soon, and we need to take and I think the prime example is this fuel crisis that we've got. Use it as an opportunity. Let's use it as an opportunity to kind of, so that we don't just have to jump in a car. We can jump on a train. We can jump on a bus and go somewhere. We don't have to be stuck in traffic.
What fundamentally has to change to make that happen, though?
I think it's a mindset. It's a mindset is the biggest thing, is a mindset. And having this mindset that actually we don't have to be stuck in traffic driving to work. We can look at alternatives. And that is and that is what I think nationally that needs to happen as well, is that the first instinct should not be, let's jump in a car and drive somewhere. It's
how do you affect that change though, Michael? Because I hear you. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But for so long, Kiwis are kind of like back themselves and like, oh, I want to be able to go where I want to go and when I want to go. And to your point about the fuel crisis, like it should fundamentally open up a switch. But I suppose it has to come from multiple levels of saying there is another way, but we have to drive it, and you need to come on board with us. Yeah. So that you do have a bus network or a rail network that first of all is that works, is on time, and that you trust.
Yeah.
And that trust has to be worked on and instilled, because without that, nothing's going to ever change.
No.
So yeah, I hope it does work. But what do you reckon is the single most effective way to do that?
So let's make it free.
Wow, that's okay.
That's at the moment removing all the barriers, and to get. It's like, so I bike to work. I was driving, and then I bought a bike and I bike to work. And it's like the same mindset of going to the gym for the first time. The first time is it's hard, and I could be.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah, and so I could be driving my car right now, or I could be at home. But then I'd take my bike for the first time and I do it, and then I do it again, and then slowly you become that. Oh, actually, I prefer biking to work because I'm not stuck in traffic anymore. It's nice outside. And so you need to have that initial push and that initial kind of
to make it a habit and to form to form a different mindset.
Yeah.
How do you? This is something I've asked myself. I mean, I'm slightly older than you, but how do you get that message across to? And this is not an ageist thing, but an older generation. To actually get that mindset change. And you mentioned earlier, to affect change, to make it free, which I love that, because people go, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then eventually things will cost, and you can bring in that cost to fund it. But how would you explain that to your father-in-law or to your father, saying, hey, come on, give it a go? It's tricky.
It is tricky. It is tricky because
it's very black and white.
Yeah. I think it's almost got to say, well, look, it's almost kind of like, well, you're sitting in traffic and you're moaning about traffic, and
stop moaning about it.
Stop moaning about it.
Do something about it. You've got to be that blunt, hey?
You do, because we can't just. I mean, you can just keep building more and more and more roads, but you look at what happened overseas in sort of the 70s and 80s in America, and you just had those huge highways which just built all through the downtown of these cities, and it didn't really help anything. It just allowed more and more cars on the roads. Cities suffered from it, and now it's like, well, the answer is super black and white: is get cars off the roads.
Michael, what's something that you believed about good urban design 5 years ago that you've since revised, and what changed your mind? So you've been an architect for a while now, and you've got into your groove and the way that you do things. But looking back, is there anything that you would have revised or would revise going forward?
I think intensification is a real...
What is intensification?
Intensification is that we are intensifying, so increasing the density of housing in cities to prevent urban sprawl. Okay, all right. So that's changed the way you design? It's probably something that is more of an issue now, where we can't, especially in cities like Auckland and Tauranga as well, if we keep just sprawling and having that quarter-acre dream with the big backyard.
So is that dream gone?
It's completely gone.
Is that dream like done?
Yeah. As a country, we cannot afford to keep sprawling.
Okay, so try convince me why I should get into like you say, you see these plots of land now where there used to be one house and it had the yard, and now you're getting 6 units put on them.
Yeah.
You know, but the longevity of that, I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is. It's a classic. Oh, I don't want to have that. I want to have my nice section. But the reality is, if we keep sprawling, and traffic is only going to get worse because we still love our cars, and we have to keep building. It's essentially we have to keep doing it, because what that does, it enables, as the denser populations within the city can therefore help with the public transport, because then we've got people within the cities that can then more connect to different areas in the city. And so it's a whole chicken and egg thing. But the more people, the more then we can spend on less on roads, more on public transport to get that. And I mean, I think the one thing that we're lacking in New Zealand is what in Europe they do so well, is that they have smaller neighborhoods. So in New Zealand, we've got our supermarkets, which are big supermarkets, and you're forced to drive. You've got a pub, which is kind of in the city. But
these little mini neighborhoods in Europe, which are self-sufficient.
Yeah, and so like I think in Martor we've got the Martor, which is sort of a little bit like that. We've got the
tiny scale.
Yeah, at a suburban pub, but it would be fantastic to see actually with this bringing in the urban intensification, which could then trigger smaller
drive economic growth.
Yeah, and we could have a like mixed use. I think is so important. So you could have smaller supermarkets, and then you could have people can then walk to it, and
it's so interesting because it's a study in human nature, and I can't remember where I read this. I heard about it, but people eventually that live in a suburban area they have 2 or 3 places that they go to because they trust them, and that's their route. So they'll go to their favorite coffee shop, they'll go to their favorite restaurant, they'll go to the supermarket, and they don't necessarily need to travel outside of that area to go somewhere else. They will if they have to, but that's kind of where they're at. But we need to make that happen, and it becomes a numbers game. And I think in New Zealand, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a numbers game. We've had, there's only 5.5 million of us. There's probably more now. Most of that is in Auckland, obviously Wellington. Tauranga is quite small, but the opportunity is there as a micro climate or microcosm of what is possible through intensification, through urban design, and through making public transport and infrastructure work. But we've got to get everybody on board, and it'll take time, but it will eventually get there. Okay. All right. Let's go back to citizens' assemblies. Tell me about citizen assemblies and what that actually is for the Opportunity Party, and what does it mean?
Yeah, so the citizens' assembly is basically you're getting a group of citizens, educating them, and it's about 120 people, and sort of pick them, and they're basically a mini representation of New Zealand. So you'll have people that everyone can kind of apply to do this, and then a few more are selected from that, and then...
So it's across the board?
It is. It's a complete... You want to have it's about 120 people, and it represents the whole of New Zealand.
But the experts right down to the layman person, whatever the case, is talking about a specific subject, discussing, debating, and coming up with a consensus.
And so you can also... So those people... I think the key one is that these people are educated on the issue. So they have experts that come in and talk to them. People can submit how they're, so it's not just, yes, you've got the people in the room, but anyone in the whole of New Zealand is welcome to submit what their opinions are, or they have evidence. And so you're listening to a whole range of people, and that can then be used as a way to tackle the big issues that sometimes politicians don't want to touch,
which are often discussed behind closed doors.
And with a referendum, it's quite a simple question, and you're just kind of, you don't really understand, you're not that educated on it. It's just a yes or no. But with the citizens' assembly, all of these people are educated, and then and especially with the opportunities policies, is that what is discussed can then go and be debated in Parliament. line by line.
But it's based on a consensus across the board.
Yep.
It's not just one person's opinion.
And there was one example in Ireland that did it. And so they debated, I can't remember exactly what the issue was.
I think it was abortion.
Yeah, it could have been.
It was abortion.
And 66% of the Citizens' Assembly voted to change the laws around that. And then it went
based on that discussion.
Based on that discussion. And then it went to Parliament, and then there was a referendum on it. And then it was around the 66% mark in the country agreed to change the law. So it was actually a true representation of how the country was feeling. Yeah.
Amazing.
And so that to me, if you can get it across the board, it really kind of helps. So I think it's a fantastic policy.
Yeah, it goes back for me, just listening to you. It's also about education of the client. Like this, there's got to be another way.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for so long, and this is where we've got change has to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So most people run for parliament have spent their life being political, for lack of a better word. You've spent your career being spatial.
Yeah.
So you think in buildings, you think in landscapes, flows of people. Has that made you better or worse at reading political situations?
I think it's made me it's given me a more holistic overview. And so I always like to refer that when I was studying architecture, it's all about looking at solving a problem and looking at it in a holistic way. And so looking at the social elements, the environmental impact elements, and the economic impacts, and creating a built intervention that sorts all those and works with all of those different elements. And so that's how I like to look at things, is that you're not just looking at one element. If you make something, yes, it can benefit the economy, but it's also got to look at the environmental and social. And so that's why I think that I often think that a country should be a tripod, that you can't have the economic more important than the environmental, or the social. The environmental can't be more important than the other two. And so it's all got to be balanced. And that's what my sort of thinking and my study has taught me.
So succinctly put. I love that. Thank you very much for that. Now, you've got a little one on the way.
Yes, I do.
How does that affect you, and what are you looking forward to about becoming a dad?
Yeah, I'm really excited about being a dad. So having a little boy.
Congratulations.
And I just can't wait to, we were talking about this the other day, when we go to the farm, we get some gumboots for him, and we can go down the track, we can go see all the farm animals. We're really excited to have a little boy. And I think that's sort of, in a way, justifying why I'm doing this.
Okay.
Because it means now that the future that I want to see my son to have is a future with opportunity policies and opportunity in government that benefits, that is not a detriment to the future of him leaving, but it's actually looking at a positive future.
Michael, I absolutely love that. And thank you for opening up and giving me your time. And I really look forward to hearing you and seeing you in the public eye.
Yep.
And I hope this podcast allows people to get under the surface and just find out a little bit more about who you are. So thank you very much for your time, Michael.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you very much. It's been great.
And folks out there, thank you very much for your time. Please pass this on, share it. If there's anything that you want to ask Michael, let us know in the comments and I'll get the questions to him. And thanks for listening. And just remember to be kinder to yourself and a little bit kinder to those around you. Cheers.
Can I ask you a question?